Hailing from Manoa, Hawaii, weighing in today at 220 pounds, he is the current reigning and soon-to-be defending ECWA Heavyweight Champion of the World, Kekoa the Flyin Hawaiian. Good evening, Kekoa.
Aloha. How are you guys doing?
Aloha. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. So, as I mentioned just a second ago, we have some big news coming from the world of Kekoa since last time you were here on HSR.
I believe so.
So, I want to be the first, well, probably not the first, probably far from the first, to congratulate you on your heavyweight championship win over Papadon, the Greek god Papadon, back in November. So, how's life as a champion these days?
I mean, it's as much as I'd like to say that it's all glorious. I mean, there are some downfalls to it. I mean, everybody wants to kick the crap out of me now, a lot more than before. But I mean, it is fun though. It's definitely an accomplishment to be able to kind of like, just know that you're the top guy of a company, and especially a prestigious company like ECWA that's been around for 40 years, and especially when they tell you who's exactly been the heavyweight champion of the company, and it's just a list of guys that have made a huge name for themselves in this business. So to be able to put my name in the same category is beyond, an honor. I can't believe how fortunate I am. But like I said, it is fun. I like to, do all the pictures that we're doing with the title, and I get to goof around with the guys, and it's always fun. It's a good time. I mean, it gets a little hectic. The schedule gets a little hectic, and you're needed for a lot more things. But I mean, that's what you work for. So I mean, you can't really you go to the gym and you work on your craft in and out of the ring, and you want to be that top guy. You get there, so I guess you really can't complain. So, but I'm loving it. It's like I said, I can't believe how fortunate I am.
Absolutely, and you mentioned that this was a prestigious belt. Let me just run through some of the names of the people that have held this belt before you. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but jumping out at me are there's folks like Christian Cage, Amazing Red, Christopher Daniels twice, Aiden Chambers, of course Papadon, Chris Wilde, who is actually really talented. I saw him at the event that you won the title at. He's really good too.
Mm-hmm.
It just the names are staggering, and to have yours added to that list has to be at the same time amazing and humbling.
It is, and I think what the most satisfaction that I get out of it is I get to get a hold of my mother, and when I was a kid and I was starting to get into the wrestling business, she told me to land my balloon, and she told me that I was wasting my life, wanting to get into the world of professional wrestling. And when there was times where I was going to training and I would come home and I could barely walk because my trainers beat the crap out of me that much, and she would just tell me that I need to quit. I need to get out of it. It was just a pipe dream. And I kept telling her, this is really what I want to do. Like, I'm going to do something with it, and so like, it was the first time that I ever got called up to WWE was a really rewarding dinner. Like, I took my mom out as like a celebration. And then when we got our food, I was like, okay, here's a toast to wasting my life, to, landing my balloon. And she's like, you're never going to let me live this down, are you? And I said, hell no, I will never let you live this down. So thank you. I appreciate it. But I love her.
That is awesome. So I'm sure you've had any number of difficult matches in your career. A question from Doc, who actually came to the show with me when you won the title. He wants to know whether or not that particular match, the match where you won the title, was your most difficult match to date.
I'm not exactly sure if it was my toughest. I mean, but I'm not taking anything away from Papadon. He's a phenomenal competitor, and everybody knows what a great talent that he is. That his resume speaks for itself, and the fact that he, I believe, was the longest reigning ECWA champion in history. Before Chris Wilde took the title from him, not me.
Right.
But I believe, to be perfectly honest, that probably the hardest match was when I faced my tag team partner, Aiden Chambers, because not only was I facing somebody that was exactly like me in and out of the ring, I also had to jump over the barrier and this hurdle of being that guy to end my partner's career. I was his very last match.
Oh,
wow. And it's something that still is like not wrapping around my brain because he's so young. He's such a young guy, and I thought that we were going to have many, many more years as a great tag team and being able to travel around and win all these titles, but all of a sudden it was just like, hey, this is it. And it's a really unfortunate incident, but throughout that match, it was kind of, at one point you're like focusing on what you're doing, and then the other is like, hey, this is it. Like, this is the last time you're ever going to be doing this with him.
Right.
And it's such its own battle, and it makes you think about when the last time that you're going to lace your boots up, when the last time that you're going to go through that curtain, because you never know. I could get in a car accident, tomorrow, God forbid, and, never be able to walk again. And, it's kind of hard to be able to say, like, was my last match everything that I wanted it to be? So it's a tough thing to think about. So I believe that match was probably the toughest I've ever had to deal with.
I completely understand. What would you say is the hurdle? I mean, I'm sure there must be, to a certain degree, even in federations other than WWE, TNA, WCW when it was in its prime, there has to be some degree of a glass ceiling in every organization. And how do you get yourself over that ceiling? Is it only a matter of your in-ring skills and your charisma, or is there other things that you have to do in order to do that?
I would say if I had to give any advice to anybody to kind of get themselves to that next level, and I'm trying to follow my own advice, is to completely stand out. And when I say completely stand out, I mean you need to look like the Big Show standing in front of midgets. Like, that's how much you need to stand out. And it has nothing to do with your in-ring performance, as far as like, I can do a 450 off the top rope, or I can do a standing shooting star. None of that matters. Everyone pays me everyone pays to come see me, fly around the ring. But what matters is, from what I was guided from the people that I was listening to, is your character. And it's everything that, you have to be able to be remembered, and so far, like, I feel like Kekoa the Flyin Hawaiian is a character that, can be remembered, because there are a lot of shows that I do and people remember, like, oh, you're the guy with all the orange gear, or you're the Hawaiian guy, or you're the flying guy. And sometimes they don't get the full, oh, you're Kekoa the Flyin Hawaiian after meeting me the first time. But I believe that you have to develop a character, you have to develop something that makes you 100% stand out and people remember you right away. And that's something that I'm working on. And then whether or not it's going to be still who I am right now, or if it's going to develop into something else, I'm not sure. That's where the road's taking me. But if I had to say what's going to get you through that glass barrier, is exactly that. You have to be something that this business has not seen before. Or at least, if it has seen it before, you have to bring it to a whole nother level.
That kind of brings to mind, not that I want to, talk about other people necessarily so much, but it ties into the conversation. I'm remembering way back, and it feels like decades ago now, when Steve Austin made his break from being the ringmaster to being Stone Cold Steve Austin, and
the famous promo.
Exactly, and I'm sure that the ringmaster was something that was imposed upon him by by the writers and the bookers and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
the Stone Cold character wasn't so much a character as it was just him. And
Mm-hmm.
so next question I would have would be is, to what degree should you be willing to take on what you know is a lame gimmick just to give yourself that opportunity to move on?
I believe. I mean, it's tough to say because I'm not there. And I don't have, so I don't have the credentials, I guess you could say, to be able to give the proper answer. But if I had to give my best guess of, how much do you have to put up with, maybe whatever is being asked of you, I believe that you have to have a give and take, and I definitely believe that, if somebody is giving you, if saying, if I was in WWE right now and they said, and I was in NXT and then they said, hey, we have this idea for you to bring you up to the main roster. I don't care what the next sentence is. If your first sentence was, we're going to bring you up to the main roster, that, to me, that would be like, I don't care what the heck it is. Put me in a dress for all I care. I don't believe it runs that way though. But if somebody gave me an idea, I feel like just work with it. I mean, like, look at Dusty Rhodes. Like, the polka dots was given to him. It wasn't like it was his idea. And now he's made it famous for what it is. Like, that's his famous WWE gear.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I feel like maybe that would be the best, guess that I could make if somebody were to give you something and say, this is our idea for you. Maybe just make it the best that you can possibly be, so that you can say, hey, I'm worth it because I made this bad idea good. So now when I come up with a good idea, you're going to listen because I made that work, so I can make almost anything work. That's how I feel.
Right. So it's pretty hard to say that there'd be any gimmick that would be so bad that you couldn't make it into something good. Is that kind of the gist?
True and false. I did get to catch the Stone Cold documentary DVD that WWE had produced, and he was going over some of the names that he remembered was on the list of nicknames, and I remember some of them, and I was like, I don't know who even would write that down, but that's just me though. And he obviously had very bad feelings towards some of them, and then landed on what he did. Obviously, for anybody that doesn't know the story, Stone Cold, his wife at the time actually, said the line, and then that's when he thought of it, or they thought of it, excuse me, not the writers, but
right.
Just to clarify.
Another question coming from listeners. The question is, how important are mic skills in getting over? Can you get by without them, or do you really have to have that?
I mean, there are guys that have been in the business that have basically just been slapped with a manager that can talk. So, it helps them along to maybe necessarily help develop it. If anybody remembers, Bret Hart and some of his DVDs or interviews that he's done, he has openly said that he wasn't the greatest talker, and that's why he had Jim Neidhart. Mm-hmm. When they were a tag team, he did most of the talking. You do have to know, I feel, at one point when the mic is handed to you that you should at least be able to get yourself through it. I don't necessarily think that you have to be a CM Punk or, a Dusty Rhodes or a Billy Graham or anybody that's, can just take it to some crazy level of like, oh my God, that was history in the making. But I mean, you do have to know how to at least get yourself through it, I feel. And that goes back to, developing your character. And that's something that I'm working on right now, where my promo or mic skills are, I have the basics down, but now I just need to be able to carry it into something that's different. And I have to be able to tell more of a story with it. So that's what I'm working on right now, so that more people will be able to grasp on it rather than just, he's plugging when the show is.
Now, is that something you just gain by experience? Do you have mentors that teach you how to do that? Is it something you have or you don't have?
What I'm working on as far as promo skills, is that what you mean?
Well, I mean, those mic skills that you try to develop, even if you don't necessarily have a lot to begin with. Is that something you can gain, or?
yeah, it's definitely something that you can gain. It's definitely something that you can work with. Sooner or later, it's just going to click on how, at least to get the basics down. And what's funny, when I was training to be a wrestler, what our trainer would do, my dear old friend, Mr. Bill Daly, he would have us wrestle around for an hour and a half and do cardio for an hour and a half, and we're standing there sweating bullets, barely being able to breathe because it's so hot in this room. And then he would say, okay, we're going to cut promos. You know, you have to be able to think on your feet, and especially in these harsh situations, you might have to roll out of the ring and then do an interview right there. You have to be able to do promos.
Oh my God.
And it was good. It was good practice, and it was funny because the first time I was such a quiet kid growing up. I was such a nerd, and I was such a to myself kind of guy. And even when I was training, I would just not open my mouth because I saw other people open their mouth, and they were getting the crap kicked out of them worse than I'm already in. So I'm learning my lesson. And then the first time that I ever cut a promo, I did one, and my trainer was like, "Where the hell did that come from?" And I'm like, I'm sorry. And he was like, "No, it was good." He goes, "But you're quiet all the freaking time, so I didn't know that you actually had something in you." He's like, "That was good." Well, you know, that's something that I was quite proud of. So I'm not saying that and please forgive me, I am not in any minds do I think that I'm a great interview person. Do I think that I'm at least above average? Yeah, I feel like I'm above average. I'm still working on my stuff. You know, I'm still a young guy. But yeah, like promos is definitely something that you can develop, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm working on developing. I'm getting better.
Right. Now, there's a saying when it comes to advertising or whatever, that there's no such thing as bad publicity. And I would assume that there's a corollary to that in wrestling. There is no such thing as bad heat. So, you know, at the event that I went to, there was a very, very vocal contingent of people who were cheering for your opponent. Even though, from my perception at least, you were to be the face and he was to be the heel. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, does that throw you in the course of a match to hear people that, you know, the more vocal side of things being on, you know, on your opponent's side when they're supposed to be on yours?
No, it doesn't bother me. I mean, it's not like they were booing me. They were just cheering for him. So it didn't necessarily, because some people are like, "Oh, it seemed like you were the bad guy there." No, I wasn't the bad guy. It's just that you know, the louder fans were for him at certain points. And if you recall, at one point, like in the beginning, he was getting a lot of crowd reaction, and probably more than me. But then as the match progressed, it started slowly going towards my way because I'm the underdog.
Right.
You know, I'm the guy that they are like, you know what? Maybe I do want him to win. You know, maybe like. So no, it doesn't necessarily throw me off or anything of that sort. You know, there's a lot of other things that have thrown me off in the match, and whatever the crowd cheers is not one of them.
Okay. Related to that, a question that came up in chat is, have you ever played the role of a heel, and would you enjoy doing such a thing?
I have been a heel before. There's been times where I'm either facing the hometown hero or, you know what, before I even continue, that's probably the main times that I've been a heel is when I'm facing the hometown boy. There is a company right now that I am a heel in called AWS out of like the Lehigh Valley. They had me do heel at the last show, and I think that they're going to continue to push me towards that way. And when I like to be heel, I generally like to be a babyface because I think it's a harder challenge. It's much harder to get somebody to like you rather than hate you. I can go up to someone and be like, "Hey, you're ugly," and they're going to go, "What the hell was that?" Like, well, he was rude, and then they're not going to like me. You know, it's a lot harder to go out there and be like, "Hey, like me." You know what I mean? Like it's much harder to gain the love of fans rather than gain their hatred. So I think that's why I like being a babyface more, but I do like being a heel. And you know, I want to also be versatile and be able to say I'm great at both. So I'm kind of glad that there's at least one company right now that I am being a heel in, so that I can definitely work on that aspect, because there's a huge imbalance, in my opinion.
Right. No, I would agree. And I would imagine being a heel, it's one of the other challenges you have to face, aside from getting people to like you, is getting everybody to like you, because otherwise you end up with, I guess, what's been come to be called Cena heat at this point, where you get the little girls and the kids and the girls who think you're hot like you, and then all the adult males hate your guts.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
is there a way
I don't
to?
have that. I don't have that right now, thank God.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I'm sure one way to get people to rally behind you and whatever is to embrace social media. I mean, in this day and age, that's the way to do it. Uh,
hmm
and so I noticed that you've been taking to doing the Vine thing more lately rather. Would you like to expound upon that a little bit? Tell me about your Vine.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I don't hang out with a lot of people because I'm always busy. Like, I'm always either going to the gym or going to shows, and then, like, the little time that I do have, like, I have to come home and take care of my dogs, and I have to eat, and I have to rest. So
Eating.
there's not a lot of time that I actually get to hang out with people. So, like, when I'm in the car or, like, I'm at the gym, like, I get bored, so I want to, like, entertain somebody. So I'm like, I'm gonna start making more Vines, because I was doing Instagram videos, but I feel like Vine is a lot more popular with, like, followers and whatnot than Instagram, because I mean, some of these people on Vine, they're nobodies. They're literally nobodies. They just make funny Vines, and
Mm-hmm.
they have like 4 million followers, and it's awesome because it's like Vine is such a great social media app, because it's like, you need a smile, there's Vine right there. There's a bunch of people that are trying to make other people laugh just for the fun of it, and they're not looking to, make money off of it or anything of that sort, which they kind of now are, but that's not what their intentions were originally. So, but I mean, Vine is like is an outlet for me to just be funny. I like making people laugh, and I like to be entertaining. Obviously, look at the business I'm in.
Right.
So if I come up with something, like an idea or whatever, I just pop it on social media. I don't care if it doesn't have to be, amazing entertainment every time, but it's just something. I'm just doing something because I get bored. That's why I love, all my social media outlets, and I love interacting with the fans. And there's actually a wrestler recently that had messaged me and was talking to me, and they were saying that I shouldn't interact with the fans as much on social media, because we need to differentiate between, okay, they're the fans, we're the wrestlers, like, we shouldn't be talking to them as much. But I'm like, but I
That's bull.
disagree. I believe that the day and age that we are in now with social media, I mean, look at what WWE does. They put hashtags on everything, and they put the wrestlers' Twitter names, like, right under their name banner when they come out. Like, they're all about that. And I'm not saying that they're always right, but what I am saying is, here's, the Megatron, the mega company of the world, and this is what they're doing. So, and I feel like if, with what I'm doing, I have fans that private message me, and they tell me that, that I'm their fan, I'm their favorite wrestler of ECWA, and they follow me on, like, every social media thing that I have, and it's like, okay, these fans are giving me, like, basically everything that they got. They're coming to the shows, they're paying their hard-earned money. They follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Vine, and if they send me a message and they say, "Hey, how's your day going?" Why am I going to be this, jerk, and then just not answer their message? I mean, I'm not saying that I answer every message. Sometimes I get a little busy, but I mean, what's the harm? I'm
Absolutely.
making somebody's day by just saying hi, and that's awesome. Like, to me, that gives me a great feeling to know that for some reason I'm an important part of this person's life, and it's hard to kind of grasp your head around that, but it's such a phenomenal, thing to hold. And that's why I disagree. That's why I love social media that much, so much, and that's why I try to interact with everybody as much as I can.
I definitely agree. I mean, you can't be in any sort of entertainment industry and not embrace that anymore. It's just too important, honestly.
Hmm.
I've been going crazy with doing the Twitter and the Facebook thing lately, and up until recently I hadn't, and I'm just seeing the things are changing so much for the better since I have, and I feel like I'm stupid for having waited this long. So, so, I totally see where you're coming from. I'm going to ask you to hang on for just 1 second. I do need to
No
run
problem.
our top of the hour station ID, and then we will get right back to our conversation because we have plenty more to talk about.
All right.
SRN1 from the heart of the regions.
And we're back with Kekoa the Flyin Hawaiian, the ECWA World Heavyweight Champion. Now, there are a couple big events going on for you, and the first one I want to talk about is a match that you have coming up, champion versus champion. Tell me a little bit about
Yes.
that.
For the in my opinion, or to my knowledge, excuse me, I think this is the first time that this is happening in ECWA history. Now, like I said, I could be wrong, but this is going to be ECWA champion myself versus Pure Pro Wrestling's heavyweight champion Jimmy Parker, and this is going to be in Pelham, North Carolina. I believe this is on. Yeah, this is on February 8th. Sorry, my mind got jobbled a little bit there. But yeah, like I said, I think this is the first time that ECWA title has been defended in another company. But like I said, I could be wrong. But at least I know that it's the first time that it's happening in the past 3 years, at least, because that's how long I've been with ECWA. So this is, to me, this is a huge opportunity to go see a great show.
So, are both belts on the line or only yours?
Both titles are on the line.
Ooh. So, after that night, unless it ends with a double DQ or double countout or something, you're going to either be two champions or none.
Exactly.
Ooh.
That's why there's so much riding on it. And I know for anybody that's never been to a wrestling event in North Carolina, the fans down there are so electric. Like up here, sometimes it's hit or miss with the North, but down south they are so passionate about professional wrestling down there. It's awesome, and that's why I think that this show is definitely going to be one of the top shows for Pure Pro Wrestling in 2014. I'm really excited to be a part of it.
Wow. So, I've always kind of wondered how this works. When you have a belt that belongs to one company and is defended in another, I mean, that is legitimate as far as both companies are concerned. So if you lose that belt to that gentleman down there in North Carolina, somebody else from you or somebody else from ECW has to go down to get it back, or else it's not coming back.
Yeah, I'll probably have to pay the gas bill if I do.
I mean,
I don't think the balls will cover it if I lose.
That's nuts. Of course, the opposite is obviously also true. So if you come back with a PPW belt, well, I mean, that's freaking awesome. And now we got some serious bragging rights.
Exactly.
So, question from the chat room, unrelated to all this. You described yourself as a quiet nerd growing up, and I completely relate to that. So, what came first? You wanting to be a wrestler, or you wanting to build up your physique? Because, I mean, obviously they go hand in hand, but one probably came before the other.
Yeah, it was definitely wrestler. I've wanted to be a wrestler since I was like 3 years old.
Oh my gosh.
The way that I was told how I got into wrestling was my dad put me in front of the television when wrestling was on when I was 3, and I started beating the crap out of a pillow at one point.
That's adorable.
And they said from that day on, I've been hooked. So I would say, yeah, being a wrestler was first, and since I've been in the business, I always knew at some point like I had to start taking weightlifting seriously, because when I graduated high school, I think I was 150 pounds soaking wet. Like I was nothing, and a good friend of mine, Jeff, who went with me to, I believe, my very first show outside of, my first show was in New Jersey. So it was my first show outside of that company. And we went to North Carolina, and she had to actually remind me of the story because I don't remember too many hits to the damn head. She said that I was in the locker room and I was seeing a lot of the guys that were a lot muscular than I am, and she was like, you stopped at one point and was like, damn, I need to start lifting. and it took me some years to get serious about it. Like, there were times where I was like, okay, I know I have to go to the gym, and I was going and I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it right. You know, there's a difference between going to the gym and, you know, then actually getting the knowledge that you need in order to push yourself to that next level. Now, working out, like, just going to the gym in general, like, it's obviously always better than just staying at home. But in order to get to, you know, your goal, and if getting in really great shape and gaining weight is your goal, there's a lot that you need to learn. And I was just starting to surround myself with the people that had that knowledge. And at one point, like, I had gotten a personal trainer, and they showed me, you know, basically a gist of how things were going to be ran. And I stayed with them for a couple months, gained all the knowledge from them, and then sooner or later I was like, okay, let me try this on my own now. So then I kept doing that, and then just getting information from different people in order to get to that next level. So yeah, definitely being a wrestler came first because weightlifting is a bitch, pardon my French.
No, quite all right. What is your, you know, obviously you said 3 years old, but I'm sure your memory doesn't go back that far. What's your earliest memory of watching wrestling? What's the first match that sticks out in your mind?
The first match that I ever can recall is the 1993 Royal Rumble, won by Yokozuna, eliminating the Macho Man Randy Savage last. That's the earliest memory that I have.
Wow.
I remember we bought that pay-per-view. And
that takes me back. Seriously.
Yeah. It was that was definitely a good pay-per-view. And then that was when Yoko had to end up going on to face Bret Hart.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think he beat him, didn't he, at WrestleMania?
I believe so. And then subsequently got
beat
immediately.
And then Hogan beat him, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like right away.
I think that's the line.
That was.
And then I remember
Caesars. I think was
Shawn Michaels versus Tatanka at WrestleMania 2.
Oh my gosh!
Because I remember I think Shawn lost by count out or something like that, or he didn't get in right away, or something like that. So he lost, but he kept the title.
Oh my gosh!
I think that's how it went. I always have to defend myself because, you know, you always get those people that are like, no, that's not how it happened. How do you have this wrong? I'm sorry. Sometimes I don't remember exactly how they go, but I think that's how it went. So those are my earliest memories. I remember the 93 Royal Rumble. I remember WrestleMania that year with Undertaker and the Giant Gonzalez. I remember Tatanka and Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart losing to Yokozuna, and then Hogan coming in. Those are my earliest memories.
Wow, that seriously takes me way back. That's awesome, man. The question was asked on Facebook, on your Facebook actually, about who you have not faced in ECWA yet that you would like to, and I think that ties in really well with something that you wanted to mention, being the Super 8 tournament coming up. Is there anyone in that tournament that you're looking forward to being able to face that you haven't yet?
Well, there's only two people that have been announced, and I apologize for not remembering who the second person was.
Oh.
But I remember the first one was Matt Cross.
Okay.
And I would like to face Matt Cross. And to be honest, I haven't actually watched a lot of his work. I have seen like one or two matches of his, but just because of, you know, the name that he's built for himself and with his resume, I would love to get in the ring with him. Before I even continue, was that Joe Zanol that asked who I would like to face in ECWA that I haven't faced yet?
Let me see. Where did I have that?
Do you have that written down?
That was Bev Henson.
Oh, okay. Because I was expecting Joe to rib on me about it, because he always does. He always jokes about me. The person that I would love to face in ECWA that I haven't gotten a chance to get in the ring with is Mr. Ooh La La. I love that man so much. He is just phenomenal at what he does. Like he is phenomenal at doing nothing, and that's amazing. The first time that I ever saw Ooh La La wrestle was when I was training, and we had to go on a field trip to this show because our trainer was booked on the show, so we had to all go watch him. And I saw Ooh La La in the opening match against something Fire. I think I forget what his name was, but they did a match for 10 minutes, and they literally didn't do one move. The entire 10 minutes was Ooh La La had brass knucks in his tights. So they would start walking around the ring like they were about to lock up and start the match, and then Ooh La La would turn face to the crowd and go for his brass knucks. And then all of a sudden the ref would come over and he'd freak out and he's like, no, I don't got anything. And he'd keep him in there. And then the crowd was going nuts. And then the babyface was getting into it, like, what's he have? What's he got? And then when his attention is turned away, Ooh La La would go back to the brass knucks and then he'd pull his hand out right away. And I'm watching this, and at the time, I was being taught wrestling. I wasn't being taught how to work. I was being taught how to wrestle. So at the time, I'm like, this is the most boring crap I've ever seen in my life. They haven't done anything yet. It's just this guy going for his nuts. This guy sucks. He's terrible. And then after 10 minutes of doing this, at one point when the ref's back was turned, he pulled out his brass knucks, punched the dude in the face. Ooh La La pinned him. That was the only thing they did in the match. And I was so furious. I was so furious that this happened. And it wasn't until I learned by going out and doing shows that I was like, this man is a genius. He didn't take one bump. His body is not ruined at all. He worked a crowd. The crowd was in his hand for 10 minutes just with these brass knucks. It was by far the greatest thing ever, and it just dawned on me. And when I first got hired by ECWA and I saw him in the locker room, I had to tell him that story, and I was like, you, sir, are a genius. So that's why I want to wrestle Ooh La La so much, because it's just the ideas that this man has is just incredible. He's an incredible man.
Wow. Now, I was looking at the card for an upcoming event that you're going to be involved in March 1st at the same venue at the Newark, Delaware Boys and Girls Club.
Yes.
And I'm seeing that you have a match against Napalm Bomb, and we'll come back to that. But one of the other matches brings to mind a conversation I was having with somebody the other day. I'm seeing the tag team special attraction match is the ECWA Women's Champion Jessie Kay and referee John Finnegan versus Renee Michelle and referee Phil Sly. Now,
yeah, I saw that.
So the question that comes back to a conversation I was having the other day is that, in your experience, do you find that referees are people who wanted to be wrestlers that for one reason or another couldn't? Or are there people that actually come into wrestling just to be a referee?
I would say if I had to pick, it would be more because they can't, for whatever reason, such as, they have a bulging disc in their back that they never got surgically repaired, and, taking a bump would be, really a big risk. Some guys just don't have the athletic ability to be a wrestler, but they love the business so much that they want to be involved with it, so they want to be as close to the action as possible, without actually getting involved, which is obviously the referee. And not enough credit is given to the referees. I mean, the referee is such a huge part of the match itself. I mean, if you want like an example of how important a referee can be, look at, and obviously he's not a referee, but look at the WrestleMania match. I believe it was from last year. The end of an era match, Triple H against The Undertaker, with Shawn Michaels as the referee. And Shawn, as great as the match was, Shawn made that match. with how emotional that he was getting throughout the match. The way he was conducting his emotions was incredible. Now, obviously, normal referees don't do that, but that's one example. Like, that referee was just phenomenal throughout. You know, he was doing a phenomenal job as a referee. But going back to the referee part, I mean, yeah, there are people out there that would like to be wrestlers. And actually, to my knowledge, there's a guy by the name of Anthony Green that I met recently at Ring of Honor camp, and he was a referee, and he said, "I want to be a wrestler." And somebody told him, "If you're going to do it, go all the way. Don't half-ass it." And I got to watch him shine at this camp. He was a really talented kid, and I really hope that I get to face him one day.
Now, I'm also thinking there might be some people that are just so damn good at refereeing that they get pulled away from being a wrestler by someone who says, "Yeah, you'd be a good wrestler, but you'd be an amazing ref. Would you pursue this instead?"
I mean, I feel like that's happened before. I feel like, you know, somewhere in the business, somewhere in the world, there's somebody that was doing a great job at refereeing, and they said, "Yeah, maybe I want to wrestle," and then they said, for their own like selfishness, like, maybe you should stay ref, like you're really good at it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just good advice, you know, that they would maybe one day be a WWE referee.
Like, you know, I can't imagine that someone like Earl Hebner ever had intentions of being a wrestler. It doesn't seem possible to me. I'm probably wrong, but it doesn't seem possible to me that he had intentions of being a wrestler.
He's very small, so I feel like you know, he probably didn't have it. He probably didn't have it in the cards that he wanted to be a wrestler. But like I said, we could be wrong. We don't know.
Right.
I miss Bill Hebner.
Bill Hebner?
Or I'm sorry. I messed that name up.
Earl and Dave?
Hebner. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said Bill. I honestly God don't know why I said Bill. I messed up. See, this is the problem with wrestling, that we do these things. I say the dumbest things sometimes, and so I apologize. And you know what? Somebody's probably going to send him the link if this is a podcast somewhere, or somehow somebody recorded this or anything. They're going to send it to him like, losing to this freaking indie kid that messed up your name. You know, a legendary referee messed up your name. So if he ever hears this, I apologize. I really do. I am stupid, and I mess things up.
That's right. I'll edit it out. Brain. I'll edit it in post-production. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine.
Oh, great.
So we were talking not long ago about wanting to stand out and about gimmicks that people give you and whatever, and also about the old, not old school, but I mean to the modern generation, the old school of wrestling. And there's a whole generation of people that don't even know who Owen Hart was. And that's a tragedy. You know, not obviously to the same degree, but it's still a tragedy. And my question about is there a gimmick that you wouldn't take because it's stupid makes me think about for love me I can't. Oh, the Blue Blazer I think was the gimmick that they gave him at that time. And yes. To a certain degree, it sounds to me almost like there is a limit beyond which you shouldn't allow yourself to be pushed, or situations that you shouldn't allow yourself to be put in, just for your own safety, whether it be career safety or physical safety. Have you noticed in the time that you've been in the industry that people, and this also comes back to like the Chris Benoit situation a number of years ago, and the Eddie Guerrero situation, and the HGH and steroids scare and wellness policies and all this other stuff. Have you seen that there's been a move towards playing it safe more often than not, or are they still encouraging crazy risks?
No, I mean obviously there's still crazy risks going on. I mean, guys are still going out there and doing death matches. I think that's absolutely absurd. I would never do a death match. But there are guys that are being more safe, and I don't know if it's just necessarily because the business transitioned that way. I think obviously it would have to be that because, back in the day when, if a promoter was like, oh, we need you to color yourself tonight. Guys back then, like, that was their job. That was their full-time job. That's how they paid their mortgages and everything of that sort. So it was like, you have to do that. Now, since the business, the independent business is there's no moneymaker. Guys are obviously being a lot more safe. They don't want to do something that's going to, basically put their health at risk. I mean, obviously, just wrestling itself is a risk. I could jump off the top rope tomorrow and break my leg.
Right.
But as far as these like riskier things, there are guys that are basically saying like, "Oh, I'm not comfortable with that," and that's fine. Because I would never, such as like that's the Spanish Fly that I do, that my finishing move in ECWA. As dangerous of a move that is, if somebody were to tell me like I'm not comfortable with that move, that's perfectly fine. I don't want to kill you. If you feel like, yeah, we'll find another way to work it. Because if somebody told me, hey, I want to give you a pile driver off the top rope through a table or something like that, I'd be like, hold on a second, I'm not cool with that. I got work in the morning. Like I ain't gonna fly. So yeah, I feel like the business is definitely being more cautious, and I think that's just better. It's not. I mean, I feel like the old school guys will be like, they're just girls. They're being wimps, and that's fine. That's what they grew up with.
Right.
But I feel like with the way that the business is right now, health comes first. We all want to be able to walk when we're 90 and not be, confined to a wheelchair. We all want to be able to pick up our grandchildren if that's that our path down the road, and that's what I would like to do.
Absolutely.
I'm still gonna go out there and lace my boots, but I'm just not gonna do anything that's gonna severely up the risk of not being able to walk the next morning.
Related to that, I mean, I just had another question that I think was a really good question. The ECW, not Eastern Championship, but Extreme Championship Wrestling. To what degree do you think that was influential in changing wrestling and making it into what it is today?
You can't talk about wrestling without mentioning ECW. That's how influential they were.
Absolutely.
I mean, they brought all different talents, and they had a wide variety of, they had the hardcore matches, and then they had, the wrestling matches, when Malenko and Guerrero were going out there and tearing the house down, and the fans were loving it. They brought such a dynamic. They brought the luchadors in. They had such a dynamic show that to cater to really everything. So yeah, you can't talk about wrestling without mentioning ECW at one point.
Right. Now I'm gonna bring the interview kind of closer to a close at this point. Tell me about your upcoming title match with Napalm Bomb.
Well, you want to know, he's a big ass man. He's a big ass man that don't hold back, and I'm going to be sore as hell in the morning. Hopefully, still champion, but I'm going to be sore as hell. I know. He's a big man. He's just as big as Atu, and Atu. That match was ridiculous. That man is a freak of nature. Standing next to him, but I'm not scared. I'm tired of seeing these guys that go out there against somebody that's much bigger than them, and they just want to use their speed all the time. I think that gives them the advantage, psychologically, and the psychological battle is a huge part of it. If you ever hear Mike Tyson do in one of his documentaries, he said the entire time he was scared. He was scared to death, going out, walking to the ring, standing in the ring, even preparing for the fight, getting his gloves put on. He was scared to death that he was going to get knocked out and humiliated, but he couldn't let anybody see that. That's why he had that look on him, and he walked the way he did, and he gave the glares that he did, and he made eye contact with the guy that he got in the ring with and never lost that eye contact because he wanted to intimidate the crap out of him. And he said as soon as somebody would take the eyes off of him when he was glaring at them, as soon as they broke eye contact, he knew he had him because he intimidated the crap out of him, and that was the psychological battle that he won. And that's something that I focus on when I get in the ring with guys that are much more massive than I am, like Atu. And if anybody didn't see that match or didn't see the match that I had against Apollyon, which is another huge guy, as soon as I get in that ring, I get right in their face and I tell them that I'm not scared of them and they ain't going to win.
Right.
And then that, I think, throws them off, and maybe that's why I've been successful against both men. But I guess I'll have to do the same thing with Napalm, but he'll probably try to punch me before I get there now that he knows my tricks.
So I'm going to ask you to slip into character, and I want you to cut a promo about this match and about the champion versus champion match as well, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure. I'll cut a quick one. You want me to hop into character?
Please, I would love to have that. I don't think we've ever had a person in character on the show before, so this would be awesome.
All right. Whenever.
Go for it.
All right. Napalm Bomb. If you haven't seen what I've been doing out there, if you haven't seen the title defenses that I've been having, I hope that you're going to start paying attention, because I exude the exact thing that I talked about. King Kamehameha, the king of Hawaii, the bloodline that I have, the Hawaiian warrior spirit that I embrace. Kekoa the name means courageous warrior. You don't understand the fact that you're stepping in with another warrior. You're stepping in with somebody with a spirit that cannot be broken. And that's why I carry 15 pounds of gold with me when I walk out to the ring. That's why, after years and years of sacrifice, I finally made it to the top. And I'm not ready to give up that spot yet. You see, Napalm, if you think you even have the slightest chance because you're bigger than me, you've already lost. Because there's nothing that's going to stop me from keeping my throne. How's that?
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah?
So, I want to, of course, as always, thank you for joining us here on the show. And it's always wonderful to have you here. We have some wonderful conversations. And I'm hoping you'll come back and join me again when you get your next title, which is going to be in a couple months.
Yeah, I hope so. If not, I'll definitely I'll come back on after I get back from Europe. I'm going back on tour. I'm going back on tour in Europe from July to August. So maybe I can come back after that. But again, like you said, I always love the conversations. I always love, coming on your show. It's definitely a fun time, and I definitely can't wait to do it again.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Kekoa. Hey, you. Yeah, you. You like music? You like interviews with musicians, witches, wrestlers, furries, mediums, and everything in between? Do I have a show for you? Wednesdays at 9:30 Eastern on SRN1, I, Skyler Hall, bring you Hotspot Radio, along with my partner in crime, Below Cute Fox. 7 years strong, Hotspot Radio is still bringing you music from every conceivable genre, using unique themes and talking to interesting people from all walks of life. Come join the fun. HotspotRadio.net, Wednesdays at 9:30 Eastern.
Where are my dragons?